Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Giselle Mills. For those of you who are new, welcome, and welcome back to my subscribers. Today is my little wrap-up video, so I'm telling you guys all about the books that I read last month in November. Now if you've been following my channel, following my videos, you'll see that I did a writing challenge called NaNoWriMo last month, and that took a lot of time, which limited the number of books that I could have read, or the number of books that I wanted to read. But despite that, I still got my reading in, although I did not read all the books that I wanted to read. If you saw my TBR list for November, I stated that I wanted to read 3 books, and I did read 3 books, but one of those 3 I switched out and I replaced it with another book, which I'll tell you guys about just now. But anyway, let's get on to the books that I actually read. The first one was this book called Children of Blood and Bone by the author Tomi Adeyemi. She is a Nigerian-American author. And if you saw my TBR video for November, you'd see that this was on it. So guys, you've probably seen this book around or heard about it. If not, it's a fantasy novel which takes place in the fictional kingdom of Orisha. It's based on African folklore and it involves lots and lots of fantasy. It follows a girl named Zelly as well as her brother and another character as they try to fight against the kingdom. They try to fight against the king who is against magic. So Zelly discovers that she has these magical abilities. There are certain types of people or a certain section of the population in this fictional kingdom who have the innate ability to use magic, and some people don't. And those who don't have magic, they tend to be afraid of those who do have magic. Now the king is one person who does not have magic, and he outlawed or forbid all those persons who have magic from using it. He actually carried out this massacre and killed a lot of the persons who have magic. And this book basically follows the events of Zelly discovering that she has magic, and along with her brother and another character, they try to fight the kingdom in order to try and bring magic back to all the citizens, those who could use magic. In a nutshell, I liked reading it. I enjoyed the story. It's a bit different from what I expected. The ending was slightly predictable in one respect, but in another respect not so much. And how it ended made me actually look forward to wanting to read the sequel, which is coming out this month in December, which is, I think is on the 6th, which is a few days from now. So I wanted to make sure I read this book first before getting the sequel and reading it. Of course, there were a few things I didn't like about it because, hey, no book is perfect, but overall, I think it's a good debut novel. This is the author's first published book. I think it was well written, but overall, I would recommend it, particularly if you like fantasy, and this is a good book to give you a little introduction on a bit of African folklore and mythology, which I thought was very intriguing, especially the use of language, the African languages. I thought that was wonderful. The next book I read last month in November is this novel called The Farming of Bones by the author Edwidge Danticat. She's a Caribbean author from Haiti. I featured this book as well in my November TBR, and what can I say? This book made me cry. To sum it up, it was, I don't want to say depressing. There were parts which were depressing, very depressing, because it is based on a true story, based on true events which took place in Haiti. It's set in the 1930s and it depicts a massacre which took place in the Dominican Republic. Now, in the 1930s, there were a lot of Haitian citizens living in the Dominican Republic. If you may not know, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, they share the same island. So there's a border dividing them, and many of the Haitian citizens went over to the Dominican Republic in order to find work, in order to cut sugarcane at the time. Export and production of sugarcane was one of the main ways in which the Dominican Republic generated income, revenue. It boosted their economy, right? Just like the majority of the Caribbean islands were very heavy on sugar production. Back then, there was this dictator whose name was Rafael Trujillo. I think that's how you pronounce his last name, Trujillo. And basically, he ordered the slaughter, the massacre, the murder of thousands and thousands of Haitians who were living in the Dominican Republic at that time. That massacre, I believe, was based on this racist ideology that he didn't want Haitians, who are generally black people of dark skin complexion, to try and take over the Dominican Republic, which at that time basically consisted of more lighter skinned persons, those who were the descendants of Spanish settlers. So it was basically racism plus colorism plus xenophobia, all of that mixed in one, which fueled this genocide which took place in real life back in the 1930s. So this story basically is set in that time. The story around the events is fictional, but it was so moving that it made me cry. I had to stop reading it at one point. There were other things going on in my personal life which, made me sad and made this even sadder for me, but this was my first time reading anything from the author, Edwidge Danticat. Apart from it being a tearjerker for me, I think the author wrote it very well. It's beautifully written. The massacre was also known as the Parsley Massacre because the Dominican soldiers would force parsley into the mouths of the Haitians and basically torture them with this parsley. And they would use the pronunciation of the word parsley in Spanish in order to determine who were Haitians versus those who were from the Dominican Republic. Now, apart from being a tearjerker, I think this book was very well written. The author has, very good use of language. It's a short book, but it's so harrowing. The story is, pulls at your heartstrings. At least it pulled at my heartstrings, I'm telling you. Because I thought it was gonna be this romance that would have started out good, then, it gets a little bit rocky. I thought they'd have been separated for a little while and then reunited, but I don't want to spoil it, but it did not have the ending that I would have wanted because, like I tell you guys, I like happily ever afters. I know in real life it may not be realistic, but I read in order to escape from real life. And there are only certain books that I want to read which would be, a parallel of real life. Despite me breaking down in tears when reading this book, and I had to take a little break before continuing because I always like to finish. I don't like to not finish books. Only rarely would I not finish a book, even if it's depressing me. It has very, very good messages, I'm telling you. Besides the sad element, very good messages. It's a true representation of how evil people could be without caring about the consequences. So it was a necessary book. Because before I read this book, I didn't know anything about this Parsley Massacre, which took place in the 1930s. So it's a great book educationally, it's a great book for knowledge. It opens up your eyes as to the atrocities which happen in the world around us. And I'm here in the Caribbean. Haiti is not all that far away from where I am. So this book is a true representation of the injustices that Black people face, that Haitian people faced, that those of minority background, those who are poor and disadvantaged face because of the harsh, evil, cruel rule of those in power, who rather rule by fear than by tolerance or anything else. So, despite it making me cry, I think it was a necessary book, and I am glad that I read it because of the knowledge, because I learned about this massacre, because it helped me to empathize more with persons who suffer such grave injustices and losses. I loved how the author used similes. There was such vivid and descriptive language. It was very well done in terms of her writing style. So guys, I don't want to go into a full review on this book in this video, so I'll just leave it at that. It was a very emotional book, evocative, very harrowing, haunting for me. And if you've read it, please let me know. Like I said, it's a good book in terms of opening up your mind, your knowledge, helping you to empathize more with persons who have suffered such grave injustices. Despite the sadness that it caused me, I am glad that I read it. If you've read it, please let me know down below in the comments. Now, in order to recover from reading that book, The Farming of Bones, I needed, something to lift my spirits, make me feel a little happier. So I decided to read a book called The Sun is Also a Star. I bought it as an ebook because I was just, it was a spur of the moment decision, and I saw it was on sale on the iBooks app. So I bought it, and I'm so glad I did. I heard about it before. It's also been turned into a movie quite recently. I think the movie came out this year. The author of that book is a Caribbean author. She's originally from Jamaica, but she lives in the US now. If you don't know about the story, the book is about a girl who is from Jamaica, living in the US, and it takes place over one day, surprisingly. Basically, her family is about to be deported back to Jamaica because they are in the US illegally, and they've been found out by the police because of her father. She's basically very pragmatic. She's science minded. She loves science. She doesn't believe in falling in love like that. She is not all that big on love anyway. But then she meets this guy. He is of Korean descent. He's an American. And there's a lot of chance encounters with the two of them. And he basically challenges her, telling her that he could make her fall in love with him before the end of the day. And what happens next, is about their interaction, their relationship with each other, how it blossoms, as well as how they learn about each other. They discover things about each other's families and the nature of life and love and relationships. I thought it was very well written. I was surprised by how much I loved it. I really didn't think I was gonna like it so much, but it surprised me. It really did. So it's a YA coming-of-age novel. It's a bit contemporary romance, and I really enjoyed it. I can't stop saying I enjoyed it. I'm probably going to buy the paperback book just because I liked it so much. I want to have it to put on my shelf and to reread it when I want, because I don't really like reading ebooks anyway. But that was actually the first ebook I read from start to finish. So that's to tell you how much I enjoyed it. I read it in like 2 nights. I stayed up and I was like, nah, I have to continue reading, and I finished it off in 2 nights. So The Sun Is Also a Star is by the author Nicola Yoon, and I really, really enjoyed that book. So I read that one instead of a horror novel I was going to read, Carrie by Stephen King. That was on my TBR list for last month, November. But like I said, I needed a pick-me-up after reading The Farming of Bones. So I looked for something light and sweet, and I found it, and it was the perfect thing to lift me up. The Sun Is Also a Star. If you've read it, please let me know as well down in the comments. Did you like it as much as I did? I thought the characters were just they're so perfect. I mean, they're not perfect characters, but I like the interaction. I loved how sweet the guy was. Ugh. I'm a sucker for romance. I like happy endings. I mean, it didn't end as exactly how I wanted it to, but it still left room for you to know that there is a happy ever after, and I like that very much. Now, because I like that book so much, I will probably check out her first book, the author Nicola Yoon's first book, which is called Everything, Everything, and that was also turned into a movie as well. So I'm going to check out that book, and I'm hoping that it's as lovely as The Sun Is Also a Star, because I really love that book. So guys, those are the 3 books that I read last month in November. And by now, my December TBR is probably already up on my channel. If you haven't seen it as yet, I'll link it down below in the description bar, and probably somewhere up on the screen as well. If you're not subscribed already, please do subscribe. I'd love for you to join my reading and writing community here on YouTube. Just click that red button. And also click the notification bell so you'll always know whenever I post a new video. You can also feel free to follow me on Twitter. I'm very active there on social media. You can find me there every single day. I am at Giselle_Mills. I also have a website. It's called GiselleMillsBooks.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!